Okay, here we go. So now we are recording. A little late start tonight. God, it's 8:15 already. Yeah, so I'm sorry you had that problem getting on, Andrea, but I'm glad you're here. So welcome to this August 23rd Virgo new moon at 0 degrees. And, for anybody that's been listening to these calls, or have you been attending the calls? Some people, I think, go on and just listen to them later. But, so this moon is really opening up this next fall eclipse series. And it is on the Virgo-Pisces axis. So Pisces is, deep spirituality, but there's a lot of hidden stuff in Pisces still. It's oceanic presence. It's all sorts of things, but especially deeply spiritual stuff. And, the Virgo axis, a lot of people, I think, go back and talk about going back to virgin awareness, not necessarily as a female virgin, but pristine awareness. Well, let's call it pristine awareness. So if you're in pristine awareness in a Virgo, detail-oriented, health-oriented, that's one thing most all these astrologers really are going in and clarifying. Virgo is all about health. And it really is, it's the sixth sign, and the sixth house usually has to do with health issues. But Virgos are very detail-oriented. At 0 degrees Virgo, it's a mastery number. Some people talk about it as being, just perfect beginning. It's always a beginning thing. It is, but it's also about mastery. I remember years ago when I first started doing this, first astrologer I had was Stephanie Azaria, and she said, "I've been waiting to talk to you all day long." And I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "You've got 0 degree Chiron at the beginning of the whole zodiac." She said, "You're either the most wounded person on the planet or you're the master healer." And I was like, okay, if you say so, because I really I was just starting into this stuff. And this is 2005. It was 2005. It was after Hurricane Katrina. It might have been 2006. No, it was 5. So we're on 20 years. Yeah. That's crazy. Actually, probably 20 years coming up after Katrina, because this year's 20 years for Katrina, people. All you, my New Orleans people, it's like, it's just almost, it's uncanny. It's just unbelievable. 20 years ago. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. So yes, but 0 Virgo really is about mastering our health, mastering our body, mastering our presence. The opposition point of that, of course, is Pisces. That is our spirituality. It is our highest expression. It's our connection to Source, God, however you want to look at that. And so there's a lot to that. The symbology is really pretty vast regarding that. And okay, let me pull it up in the chart here. Okay, and it happened really early. We've already been almost 24 hours into it. It actually happened at 1 this morning, after midnight last night. So we could have done the call the previous day, but I didn't want to confuse anybody. Because if it's on the calendar, the moon's listed on the calendar. That's what I've told everybody we would do the call on. So, but you've already been sitting in this moon all day long. And what's interesting, when I started looking at this spreadsheet configuration of what was happening and what planets are going right, there's not really anything else in conjunction with it. So there's nothing right there. However, the moon moves really fast. It basically moves through almost half the sign per day. And when it came at 0 Virgo, the first thing it comes in contact with, first two things, basically at 7 and 8 degrees, is the comet Ison And believe it or not, the very next thing is the Bray asteroid, my last name. So I'm attending this new moon, I guess, as far as my surname expression. And what's interesting about this, and this is one thing I do want to actually ask some astrologers, is like, so let's say that a certain asteroid comes along and it's a name of an asteroid. Does that mean everyone on the planet that is actually named that name, Bray, is going to be having huge feelings, epiphanies, or whatever activations with this new moon? The fact is, with the Ison comet Centaur, actually, some people only think that it is a comet. And I always did. I mean, when I looked at it before, but in those books that I bought from Benjamin Adama, he had put out 4 books, I guess, and he classifies, the Centaurs, Damocloids, the Trojans, the Plutinos, the Hamids. I mean, all basically trans-Neptunian objects, everything past Neptune. And these are the things that really affect us on the deep, deep core levels. It's the stuff that, we're it's the caca that we carry on detail levels. You've got Varuna, Orcus, Sedna, Pallas Athena. I mean, some of those move faster, but actually, no, Pallas is not that far out. That's not one of them. Orcus, Selassie is one of them. Manly Varda. Anyway, but those are the dwarf planets that are past Pluto, and they kind of act like Pluto, and yet they each have their own details on what they're doing in our lives. But so, for instance, the Centaurs, though, are important because they work with the wounding part of who we are. And a lot of astrologers don't really go into what those mean. But this is just to give you a feeling about this. So Ison, and again, this is right next to my name, and it's sitting on the moon at 8 to 9 degrees Virgo. My progressed Zeus is there. But it's the Uranian. Haumea. My Haumea is at 6 degrees, and my Venus star point is at 5. And I give you these details. I hope I don't take you guys too far beyond the astrology, but it's pertinent from this standpoint because it can really tell what's happening to you energetically and the capacities and potentialities of how you're creating. So, like Pam Gregory talks about Haumea being at 0 degrees. I forget where it's at. Wherever it's like 0 to 2 degrees. It's somewhere in whatever sign it's in. Well, now I'm curious. I'm going to have to go look where it's at. As far as transits. Okay, yeah, it's in Scorpio. So it's at 1 degree Scorpio right now. And if you have listened to the Pam Gregory videos, she always talks about how Haumea is really just deeply it's this birthing energy, islands coming out of the sea. I mean, it's kind of Hawaiian type of stuff. So I mean, you've got Lemuria. I mean, you've got all of this stuff that actually is coming out of the sea. I mean, there's new land being formed through volcanic activity, and there's a lot of volcanic activity right now. But what's interesting, Haumea is at, like I said, 1 degree Scorpio, and that has to do with, all of the hidden stuff. I mean, it's that scorpionic stuff, those parts we don't want to face, deeper, darker sexuality stuff. But at 1 degree, it's very early on, but it's past the 0. It's also right next to the Shapley attractor, which is at 2 degrees. And I know some of this stuff y'all have no firm reference for, and I understand that. But The Shapley Attractor is also one of those big points where it's like the galactic center, the supergalactic center, and the Great Attractor. And it basically is a place, where it's really opening us up to more cosmic awareness. And again, that's 2 Scorpio. So Haumea is working with that. It's sitting on my Ixion, which is another one of the dwarf planets. But okay, well, back to Haumea as far as my chart. My progressed and natal Haumea are at 6 degrees. And so this moon is basically sitting on those. Okay, what have I done? Okay, somehow I went way down. You ever do that on the computer? You just click on something and you just take yourself away from where you thought you were supposed to be. Oh my gosh, I'm in 2026. I did finally get all of the, I guess there's like 60 objects, stars and planets, and, well, not stars, but the planets and all those points. I finally got them charted all the way through 2026. So this is like really powerful now. So I'll be that much closer to doing the video presentation, which will probably be 2 or 3 hours. Okay, so Ison and my last name, Breyer, are on this moon, and they're on Haumea and the Venus star point. But to give you an idea of the Ison comet, the creative revolt, the artistic revolutionary, being popular because of idiosyncratic opinions, judgments, or remarks, the prevailing consensus in which one moves is experienced as a constant field of tension, in which the pressure is always shifting, rich in inspiration, using using playful, sympathetic, original forms of artistry and creativity to criticize social and political issues, the ability to radically and suddenly alter one's understanding of life or the course of one's life. So, yeah, I'm doing all that. It's like, I mean, it's wild. The characteristics refer to the interpretation of a dominant Ison, artistic, multi-creative, out of the box, off the grid, society, system, prevailing consensus, experiences a constant field of tension in which the pressure is always fluctuating, and the inspiration is very rich, possibly anarchist-oriented, preference for Gothic, Black Romanticism, decadence, erotic, burlesque. I mean, good Lord. Mushrooms, creative, increased creative and spiritual. Well, I'm not doing any of all that. Anyway, but it can really take people way on out. It also talks about how Sigmund Freud had a strong Ison. And it basically talks about raising issues between the dissonance between image and persona of people, of public figures, political parties, and their images and identities. So it really can go in and take you on a deep, deep level. Well, this Ison comet is traveling with me this year, and it's next to me as we're diving into this eclipse series. And I bring that up because obviously it's a personal thing for me, but there can be things in your chart that if you do talk to an astrologer, a real professional astrologer, they can pinpoint things like this that are happening for you that can assist you in your new creation of your new beginnings. And the other thing that I saw that was interesting about this, when I looked at the moon path just 2 days earlier, my John asteroid, there's John and Cox, C-O-X, that's just the name of it. And then my John asteroid came across it like a day and a half ago. Judith asteroid is literally only 8 degrees away, traveling right in front of me. The Gregory asteroid is traveling right in front of Judith. So, also with that, there's Lachesis, which is one of the fates. So we've got this fated energy with Judith as an energy expression, Gregory as an energy expression. The moon hit all 3 of those asteroids, became exact at 1 a.m. this morning, and then my last name and ISON are contacted with the moon, then the moon is going to go into the south node. All that happens on my natal and progressed Pluto. Now, I don't want to get too deep into all this, but another thing about asteroids, right around my Pluto is Pallas Athena, which is all about God, my brain is so tired today. Pallas Athena is, about liberation, justice, all these kinds of things. But they're next to my asteroids in my chart. The Gaia Earth asteroid, the Porta Coeli, which is heavenly portal, my Essence asteroid, Ubuntu, which is basically universal worldwide peace and working together, unity, consciousness, love kind of thing. And then there's an asteroid called Ilse, which is I-S-L-E, like Isle, but it's Ilse of God. And all of these things, and then the Mary asteroid, so you have Jesus and Mary here too, but all those things are right there with my Pluto and Uranus. And so it's not surprising that I am taking in this huge picture of everything that's going on. Now, as this moon moves through the next couple days, it's going to go through Libra, it's going to go through the supergalactic center, and then into Scorpio and Sag. So it's very activated, especially with the new beginnings. And within 2 days, it's going to hit Atropos, which is one of the other fates. That's the fate that cuts. It cuts the time period of something. So if it's within your life and something's happening, this Atropos is right going past my Uranus. It's also going past the natal Gregory asteroid at 29 Virgo, which is where the eclipse is going to be, and the second eclipse in a month. And it's going across the Libra World Point, which basically is the opposition of the Aries World Point at 0 Aries. So anytime you're in opposition, all of those things are going to get really activated. Libra is about balance, and it's right next to the supergalactic center, so that's yet another point. Does the galactic centers really activate? They're more like black holes, but they're places where the vastness of source really allows us to, I guess, access it as a portal. And so if we're really open, I think we're downloaded with huge amounts of vast cosmic consciousness. And that's what I've always found with me. Now, once it goes through that, it's going to meet up with Clotho, which is sitting on Mars, which is with Maki Maki and the Rhino Centaur. And those happen to be on my Jung asteroid, Carl Jung. So there'll be something probably activated for me within Jungian psychology. I'm deeply immersed in traveling with the Carl Jung asteroids. As a matter of fact, when I went in, I haven't done it for 2025, but when I started looking at 2026, gosh, my sinuses are killing me today. The Carla, it's actually a Carla asteroid, just Carl with an A, and the Jung asteroid are sitting right next to each other. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. They're also right there by the ISON comet. So if I were to go back and put the Carl Jung asteroids in for 2025, they're probably right next to the ISON comet in my last name. So I am, as an expression, as far as asteroids, energetically working with Jung as an expression, I guess. I mean, these things just come up in astrology. It's like we don't think about it because we don't talk about these kinds of things. But there's 25,000 named asteroids in the asteroid field. They represent almost everyone's name because most people's names have been coming forward for eons of time, through millennia. I mean, and it's like, I mean, I've not really gone into I guess understand the background of where people's names come from. I mean, obviously we go back, and if you go into like Anglo-Saxon stuff like that, I mean, but names even go beyond that. And again, everything's a frequency. So when you put certain letters together, you get a phonetic pronunciation. You get, and again, it's a sound, it's a tone frequency. So Bray, when that comes out, is a frequency. Jung is a frequency. But when they're traveling in the sky, those energies are playing together. And usually for asteroids, they want the orb to be like 1 or 2 degrees to really be affecting each other. So, I wasn't even going to go into this, but I guess I am. Okay, here we are. So when we're talking about these asteroids, and it's kind of off topic from the moon, but it's really kind of important if you dive into explore your own astrological charts some more. So depending on how you think we're here and why the planets affect us, and asteroids that are named for us and people that are in our lives and different things. If you go back far enough, so let's say we had the Big Bang. Cosmologists are all over the map on what they think our history is, how it gets created, all these types of things. You've got the mythology that's projected onto all the planets, and all of those planets affect us all energetically. Now, the planets are certain distances from the sun. We've got the personal planets, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Okay, and of course our moon. All of those things affect personal expression. When you go, then of course next you have Jupiter. Starting from about Jupiter out, that's when we end up with bigger energies as far as the outer expression of who we are. Jupiter blows everything up, but Jupiter really is the gatekeeper between the personal planets and the outer planets. Jupiter also is the point where you have the asteroid belt that all these asteroids are floating in. And those are between Jupiter and Saturn. I think that's right. So Saturn's the work you come here to do. Jupiter, is, basically one of the big planets as far as old, the mythology energy. So if all those planets are floating in there, they represent some sort of frequency and symbology for who we've been through eternity. So to take this in a little bit, because I was sitting with this with Spirit these last couple of weeks, and just when I really started looking at the names of asteroids, I thought, what does all this mean? So, and of course, when our parents name us, we carry that frequency until we leave, of course, here in the physicality. And yet the soul also takes on that name frequency for the incarnation. We also have the genetic and ancestral inheritance. So if you go back through time, and if you've ever done any genealogy work, that's one thing that I've done. My father's taken us back for I've got genealogy back 17 generations, back to 1500 or something. When you go back even beyond that, though, the DNA has taken us and put us into the O'Brien clan. Now, I don't know how they go back and, name DNA-specific things with that, but there is a purpose to this. I know it may feel like, where the hell is he going? The purpose is this. Everything's a frequency. When we've lived all these lifetimes, so many times we end up with the same names. How do our parents know to give us a given name, as far as what we're going to be called by first name, middle name, all these things? Obviously, it's already written in the stars. Are we looking around for names that, are you this or that? Are you going to be named after grandparents? But we carry the genetic inheritance because we are the DNA from the grandparents and the greats. And they talk about that we're working with energetically for the last 7 generations. Like there's energy that comes forward that it's all that stuff that we're working through. So, and when you look at Carl Jung, we're trying to make the unconscious conscious. So things that happen in our lives may slap us in the face, and you're like, gosh, where'd that come from today? And yet it's still something in your field that has to be addressed and worked with. And some people can have, conversations or they'll share things about this, and it can make sense. And then sometimes you look at it and you think, well, what is that about? Now, you may ask about people that, as they go through soul progression, and Judith is a perfect example of this. When she really went through the awakening process, she changed complete awareness of who she was, as opposed to the way she was born, the history she carried, the storyline she carried. She was born a Murphy, married into a Miller, and yet when she went through the deep reawakening process, she changed her name completely and just pulled something out of the blue and pulled up Linden. So a lot of you may not have known that, but Linden is she just picked a name out of, she said it was for the linden tree. And she just started taking that on as an identity. So, and a lot of people do that when they go through these deep, metamorphic jumps in their unconsciousness. They'll feel like a name doesn't fit with them anymore. And so we identify as something else until you give up the identity. And that's one thing that she had done, because the deeper she went, she still went by Judith Linden, because people still needed a frame of reference for how to reference her. But you might even question, well, did she choose Linden as a last name because of something within the DNA? Did the history feel like she wanted to take on Linden? Now, you may wonder, I guess, why we're going through all this. Why is Spirit taking me down this road? Why is John talking about this? Jonathan. All right, and again, that's identity. So, and again, a quick on this identity. I was born John Wesley Bray. That's the given name. When I was growing up, I remember hearing, things on television, come in contact with, TV shows or whatever else. There was Jonathan Hart with Heart to Heart. I always felt like a Jonathan. John just didn't feel right. And this is like, 12 years old. And of course, when I was a child growing up, I went by the Johnny asteroid. To me, people go through different names. So there's another identity of an asteroid that I'm going through as a name. Then there's the John, the primary given, and then all of a sudden I'm going to Tulane, and I just adopt the Jonathan asteroid. But what's funny, the Jonathan asteroid also has its Jonathan Murray asteroid. Murray's the hometown I grew up in. Again, everything's a frequency. If you were to really dive deep in your chart and find out where the asteroids are, it's going to play that out. And when I look at the trajectories of the asteroids, through the chart, there's progression. It really takes me into the history of where I've been. Now, the reason I've gone into all of that is because of this. Like with Judith, I'm giving up more and more of the identity that I have lived with for eons of time. Sure, my last name's still Bray. Some people call me John. Some people still call me Johnny. Some people still call me Jonathan. There's all three identities. Again, everything's a frequency. So is the Jonathan asteroid accessing parts in my chart that are more on the spiritual journey and the identity, because that's the identity I've worked with Judith all these years. I really am the embodiment of all three. And the reason I'm going into this specifically is to show you that we all have a capacity of a depth of experience of who we are that we're putting out into the world. Now, I could do like some people and say, okay, I'm going to give up all those names. I'm going to take on something. I'm going to go by Yogananda. Well, I'm not drawn to do that. But it's, there's all these frequencies we come in contact with. And I'm bringing this up for this standpoint. 0 degrees Virgo is taking us into, all the way to your core of who you are as an expression. Who are you in the details? Now, I don't care what your history has been. Imagine that right now with this moon, everything is zeroed out. Imagine that you are going into a virgin expression of who you are as human. What would that look like? Now sit in that. Is it possible that one moon, a new moon after all these years you've been on the planet, some of you are all the way up into your 80s, some of you are only 50s, 60s, 70s, but what would it be like to literally go into a 0 point Virgo expression, to go into a virginal, and I know, look, we've lived life. None of us are virgins anymore as far as, the way it's looked at as far as sexual expression, and we're certainly not virgins as far as wounding and identity crises and issues and the baggage and the history of all the stuff. But what if you could go into just a pure, pristine awareness? What if this 0 degree Virgo new moon could take you into that, and you drop the stories? You drop all the names, you drop all the identities, you drop all the asteroids that have taken you through to this particular point. Am I giving up the asteroids? I don't know, because the asteroids are still there. They're in the sky. It really begs the question, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is life happening around us because the asteroids are meeting certain places with the planets, with the natal placements and the progressed placements of all the things in our charts? Are we the chart, and are we expressing the chart because that's what the planets are doing, which is an unconscious expression of who we are? Or do we have the capacity to take our power all the way to our core and leave whatever's happening in the sky with the charts to really take pure sovereignty over a new creation? It's almost like an epigenetic jump. And when you listen to people like Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton, these are people with doctorate degrees. These are people that have 40, 50 years of experience reading mythology, going in and researching all the religious texts and all the whole vastness of what's out there. And so, and all this is being brought up for this particular reason. We're at the 0 degree Virgo. What do you want to create? Are we that powerful to heal ourselves so completely to walk away from all of the genetic inheritance and all the stories and all the crap we've carried? What does it mean to give those things up? And can you give them up? And again, to clarify, you can't give up something you don't own. So if you still have something in you that you're still holding and carrying with your family, your friends, neighbors, business people, whatever it is, anything outside of you, if you're still carrying an electrical charge, and what I mean by that, if you're still holding anything with an agenda or a story or a history, you're invited to release those and let those go. Now, part of your mind is going to go into this and say, oh, but that was this, and oh, I can't let that go. This was so-and-so. I don't care who they are. It can be your children. It can be grandparents, parents. I don't care. You are invited to ask yourself for every single thought that goes through your mind, every little nanoparticle of history that you're carrying, any perceived grievance. I mean, this is vast. I mean, are you starting to really perceive the vastness of what you're attempting to release? It's a big deal. Wow. Okay, I didn't expect to go into that, but here we are. So imagine that you could take your soul expression, take away the sexuality part. Imagine you could go back into a virginal expression. And I'm talking about human soul that is here in this particular moment, yet it's going to make a very deep cosmic and quantum jump out of what you think has always been your reality. Now, some of you will say, well, we can't do that. Okay, if you can't, if that's what you're declaring for yourself, then okay, I agree, you can't. That's up to you. That's how powerful I think this moon is right now that's initiated. And going into this eclipse series, that's the kind of energy potentiality we have to work with. Now, I'm not special, but I can assure you most people are probably not having this conversation with you. So this is an initiation part. The moon will travel through the whole zodiac again. And it's not going to come back through Virgo again until the second eclipse. It takes a whole month, basically, for the moon cycle to go through. So by the 19th of September, which is approaching the 21st, which is the actual second eclipse, the moon will return to this point. When it returns to this point, Venus is going to be at 0 degrees Virgo with the moon. It's also going to be there with the Lachesis fate. Lachesis is the weaver of time of the fate. Clotho is the new beginnings. It's the initiatory beginning of fate. Atropos is the cutter of time. But Lachesis gives the length of the fated moment, or whatever that is. I do not know how to interpret that in astrology yet. I've never met anybody that I knew that could do all that. What's interesting, though, that point is right next to the Gregory asteroid. It's right next to the Judith asteroid, within 5 degrees. And my John asteroid is coming up within 2 degrees of Judith. Right after the eclipse window, the John asteroid surpasses the Judith asteroid, going into 0 Virgo. And that happens on October the 7th. And when I look at that, I'm like, well, what on earth does that mean? At the same time, the Bray asteroid and the Ison Centaur have already merged, and they're traveling on the same exact degree pathway for the whole part through the whole later part of Virgo, going across my Pluto, natal and progressed Pluto, across my Uranus, shocking things, all these kinds of things, going into the 0 point, world point of Libra. And I'm not here to make this all about me, but I want to explain to you how powerful these things can be. And if you're really curious about, deep diving into finding out more about your own potential expression through your astrological chart, this is the time to go get a reading from somebody. It really is. And again, these dynamics are really powerful. And the fact that the John, Judith, and Gregory asteroids are all together, traveling together in all this, means that obviously I'm listening to Pam Gregory's stuff. It really resonates deeply with me. So is it resonating with me because of what I'm hearing her say? Is it the feeling that she gives? It can take us into a whole different level of personal observation. It's like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Now, as we go from this moon and we go into the eclipse window, which is going to happen in 2 weeks, that first eclipse is going to be, it's a full moon lunar eclipse, and it's as a total eclipse, I think. It's at 1523 Pisces, which is the midpoint of Pisces. The opposition to that point is in Virgo. The sun will be at 15 Virgo. So the moon is an opposition to Virgo, but the sun, as an expression, is in Virgo. So I think that that's even more important than the fact the sun is in Pisces. But the way the emotions will be worked with, the actual moon, which is the emotional expression, is in Pisces. So again, that's the spirituality. It's all of the, our path as far as feeling into who we are as beings of God, the all that is, whatever you want to look at it. But the sun is in Virgo, lighting up that moon. It's a full moon. It's going to release. Full moons are always releasing. New moons are in creation energy. So wherever you're at 15 degrees of Pisces, you're going to be going through major releasing. Now, how will this affect me? It's not about me, but this is what's interesting, and I guess it's why I'm speaking to it. When the sun is at 15 degrees, my Bray asteroid is sitting on the sun at 14 degrees. And it's sitting in the opposition of this moon. Mercury is coming across it basically just a couple degrees earlier. So Mercury's there, Orcus is there, the South Node is there, the Ison comet is there. So all of those, the descriptions I gave you about Ison and how that can work for us, all of those things are affecting me. So I'm speaking to these huge, big picture observations about what's happening in the world. And I guess that's why I'm doing that. That's why I'm doing these calls. That's why I've created this whole big chart. And where did that come from? I don't know. Spirit just told me to do it. Now, and I'm also giving it to you, not to let you know what's happening with me specifically, but it gives you an idea of how these moon cycles are tied together, especially with the eclipses. Now, that first eclipse, again, is there at Virgo. The second eclipse we're going to have, it's a new moon solar eclipse. It is at 29.5 minutes of Virgo, the 29th degree of Virgo. So between this new moon opening up the eclipse window, which is a 2-week time period, and to the second eclipse goes from 0 Virgo to 29 Virgo. This whole sign, it's like from a beginning to an end. By the time we get to that second eclipse, we're going into a completion process as we begin our new creations with the new moon eclipse, which is huge, huge energy. The very next day, that's on the 21st, the Autumn Equinox is the 22nd at 0 degrees Libra World Point. That point is exactly opposite where Neptune and Saturn are at the Aries beginning point. And you may say, well, why does that matter? Well, as we've talked about in the last few, calls, Saturn and Neptune have been at the beginning of Aries creating our new creations with us. Saturn for structure, Neptune with, it's the dream, but it's also the old dream. We're releasing the old dream. But what's interesting about this Saturn is going to go back into Pisces like around the 1st of September, a week before the eclipses start. So Saturn won't be at the 0 Aries point. Saturn is going to be at the end of Pisces at 29 degrees. So it's going to be in an exact opposition to that moon. Neptune will still be in Aries. It won't go back into Pisces until later. So we're still working with the new dream while Neptune's in Aries, but Saturn is going to go dive back in before the eclipse window opens up. Saturn is still in Aries right now, though, for the next week. So we're still working with it as we've opened up this new portal. But when it goes back into Pisces, we're still going to work with, again, Saturn's the work you're here to do. We're going to be observing everything about our old past life. Structures, Saturn is very heavy on structures, its rules, its regulations. It's happening on the personal level, but it's also happening on every single type of level of the collective. So that means it's happening within your family dynamics, your business dynamics, within your town, your county, your state, your country dynamics. It's happening with all humans as human expression. Saturn is diving back into the end of Pisces for this eclipse series. So there are things that are going to be eclipsed out that have to do with structures. We're re-identifying all these things. And it's at the Aneretic degree, 29 degrees. That's a big deal because it means we're going to be working with this. And let me see. So Saturn is going to be at that 29th degree all the way through the eclipse midpoint. It gets back to 28 degrees for the new Moon Solar Eclipse in Virgo, the second one, which is the opposition point of the Virgo eclipse, the second eclipse on the 21st. Saturn is going to be in opposition to that new moon. Oppositions are huge energies. We're going to be working with all of those things. Now, let me see. What else did I notice? There was something else that was a big deal. Oh, yes. Okay. So the sun that's lighting up at the first eclipse in Virgo, 7 degrees Virgo, that's, again, it's an opposition to the actual moon at 15 degrees. At 15 degrees of Pisces, which is the full moon lunar eclipse next in 2 weeks, right next door to that is the North Node. And within 2 degrees of that is Nessus Centaur. The Nessus Centaur has almost always traditionally been associated with abuses of power, all sorts of abuse, sexual abuse, power abuse, emotional abuse, mental, all of it, physical. The fact that Nessus is traveling along with the North Node is the work we came here to do. Nessus is also retrograde, and it's the nodes always travel backwards. That North Node is at 18 degrees, so it's within 3 degrees of that moon. So we're going to be working with that moon within our what we came here to do. That's what the North Node is, individually and collectively. Nessus retrograding back toward that node is going to have us all, individually and collectively, working with issues of abuse of some sort. Saturn will be at the 29th degree of Pisces on that eclipse. Now it's a half sign away, so it's basically I forget what that works like is a, it's not a half square. Anyway, but it's all in Pisces is the point. So that moon in 15 Pisces is going to bring up a lot of abuses of power. Just watch everything with politics. Watch everything with things in your own life. Gong Gong is also at 5 degrees of Pisces. I forget Gong Gong and how that one works. Anyway, but there's three major things happening in Pisces energetically within these eclipse series, and it's gonna make for a lot of transitions, and it's going to be a lot of transmuting energy. It's also going to bring a lot of revelation, but it's going to bring an end to a lot of crap. Okay, so at the midpoint of the eclipses, which will be the 14th, when I started doing these calls last year for the March 25th and April 8th eclipse, that midpoint, I ended up doing a telecall, and I did it with the previous time, and I call it the eclipse midpoint telecall, which basically it's kind of like being in the eye of the storm. It's an energy between one eclipse and the other eclipse where it kind of like cancels out. It's a nothing creation moment. I look at it as like kind of like a zeroed out 0 point energy. Now, what's interesting about that, this one in Virgo basically is not far from the 15 point. It's let me see, the sun is at 20, but that sun is going to meet Mercury on that midpoint, and it's going to be on my Pluto, and the Gaia asteroid, and the Essence asteroid, and the heavenly portal. You get the idea. It's also on the south node, and my name is sitting on the south node. So, and on the ISON comet. So I'm very active in this eclipse series. I don't know what it's going to look like. I can't begin to project a value onto it. All of those things are going to be going down. But by the time we get to this moon in Virgo on the 29th, the second eclipse, we're going to have that eclipse, and it happens immediately. Literally the next day, the sun is going to go into Libra, and we're going to have the autumn equinox. So fall will be here. They always consider it a huge portal. Again, it's in complete opposition to the Neptune. Well, Saturn's not in Aries at that point. It's already back in Pisces. But so you've got this huge dynamic between the new beginning, but it's going to be communicating with Saturn at 29 degrees Pisces. So it's like the new beginnings can come from and work with whatever it comes from our history, comes from this part where we're going to dive back in. Now, by the end of the year, Neptune is going to be back in Pisces as well. So you have Neptune and both of them. They don't get back into Aries until February I think the 16th. Now you may say, why am I going into all this? A lot is going to happen in between this eclipse series at the beginning of November and February, when everything gets back into Aries. And let me see, the reason I bring that up is, eclipses go in 6-month time periods. And you're working with those eclipses basically for 6 months. Okay. Neptune goes back into Aries on January the 26th. Saturn goes back in on the 13th. So you're going to have Saturn and Neptune on a moon, and they go into conjunction on February the 20th. That's really when we're going to start creating the new life. And those conjunctions happen at the first eclipse which is on February 17th next year. Again, these eclipses, they remove things from your life, and then they also bring you new things. So we're going to have the new eclipse window right after Neptune and Saturn get back into Aries. Again, you can't make this stuff up. It's perfect timing of everything. Now, the other reason I bring that up is because the first eclipse next fall, when Saturn and Neptune get there, gets back. It's no longer part of it is going to be Virgo, but it won't be Pisces. With the new Moon Solar Eclipse on the first eclipse is going to be at 2850 of Aquarius. So this is going to be the first eclipse that we're going to go into Aquarius now that Pluto is in Aquarius. And that really is going to usher in, Aquarius is kind of like, it's the age of Aquarius. It's like the whole collective. And so there'll be an eclipse there. Again, new moon, it's new beginnings. The full moon eclipse in the fall is going to be the second eclipse. So we'll actually have the new beginnings, but there'll be a full moon lunar eclipse that will release, and that is at 12 degrees 54 Virgo. So the releasings from next spring, will have to do with what we're doing and initiating with these eclipses. They're all tied together. So I know this has been a lot of information. I mean, all I'm doing is just looking at the skies and the charts of this new thing and saying, okay, how's this all tied together? And it's a lot. And let me see. When I go to Virgo for the eclipse, that full moon lunar eclipse is basically going to be sitting on the south node. So full moons are releasing, and it's on the south node. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that shift and fall away as we really create the new next year with the first eclipse. And we'll just have to see how all those things play out. I'm not going to go into all the details of those things, but the next part I want to go into here a little bit is what is happening in Scorpio. And again, Scorpio represents that part. It's on a personal level, it's the scorpionic stinger. It has a lot to do with the distortion, and I talk about that a lot. With you individually, we have individual distortion, perception of reality, the way we play out life, different things like that. And then we also have collective distortion. And let me see here. I'm getting in with this. So again, Scorpio has to always deal with what's hidden. And I really think that all of these transits and all these energies are going to start to awaken things. And on the last call, I mentioned about the Lilith vortex. And we've got that narcissist, the Narcissus Centaur, which basically is what be talking about narcissists. That's right in the middle of the Lilith vortex. And it entered into it quite a while back, earlier this year. If you look at people in the news, and you look at people in your own life, in your own community, this is happening on small levels, but also big levels. Any place where Narcissus is going through, it's activating the potential for people to heal past a place where they may feel, oh, look at me. Because it's really not about a me. But the fact that Narcissus is in Scorpio, and it's crossing over that full moon 22-degree point from the May 12th full moon. And I told y'all back then we would be working with this point all the way through into next year, and it's really true. So coming forth to this moon cycle, though, let me see where we're at. Okay, on the 23rd. And I guess I'm speaking to it because the Jonathan Murray asteroid is sitting at 21 degrees right on the full moon point. So I'm here. But sitting with me, right on top of me, is Vesta and Juno. And right behind me is the Narcissus asteroid, the Black Moon Lilith average, and the interpolated Lilith. And so there's a lot of energy, and this is right in the middle of the Lilith vortex. This vortex works, from my perception when I feel into it, it's taking us into those parts of Lilith where we had our power taken away. And again, I've talked about Lilith really represents our divine feminine power. It was given. It's kind of like Mary. I mean, Mary was with the disciples. She was with everybody else, but she was basically may have to be the prostitute. She's that the patriarchy tried to take the divine feminine and just junk it and say, oh, you're useless. To basically give all the control to the patriarchy. But what is happening and coming back is Lilith is reactivating all those things. But she's going to devour any place where people are not using their highest potentiality. So I think because Narcissus is traveling in the middle of this vortex, I really think people are going to start to get hit and activated. Now, this is the reason I say this. Narcissus and most of these asteroids are right here at 15 degrees Scorpio. That 15 degrees is going to be, let me see, from Virgo, 1, 2. It's going to be sextiling the 15-degree Virgo during this eclipse window. That's workable energy. So, in its highest form, I think Narcissus takes us into our own personal expression as far as an awareness. But that's also working with Lilith, which I think once we take our personal divine feminine power, it's a big deal. Now, all of these asteroids are going through that full moon and they're getting activated by that moon. And Narcissus is in its tie-up with the Black Moon Lilith oscillation. It's going to be sitting within 3 degrees of that full moon from the second eclipse point, which is on the 21st of September. It's going to be on that point for a week and a half, basically. It doesn't move. It just goes in there to station retrograde. I bring that up because that second moon, which is going to be or the second eclipse on the 21st, again, powerful new moon. But within, that next week and a half, oscillating Lilith is going to be very actively working with that moon. The moon basically dives into the oscillating pattern within 2 days on the 23rd. By the 25th and 26th, it's going to be at that midpoint meeting up with Narcissus. It's going to meet up with interpolated Lilith, Ceto Forces, the Centaur. It's also going to meet up with the Jonathan Murray asteroid. Haumea, Mars, all of these points get activated. And right after it's going to hit Mercury. There's a lot of energy here. And it's right after the supergalactic center. The moon will also, while it's in the eclipse window, right after it leaves the second eclipse, it's going to be going through the Great Attractor and then also the galactic center, which is the center of the Milky Way of our galaxy. So we're going to be getting huge cosmic downloads right after the moon. Let me see. The moon on the 28th is going to enter the galactic center 1 week later. And what's funny, the Linden asteroid is at 29 degrees right on the galactic center. You can't make it up. The Pamela asteroid is right there at the 17 degrees next to the Great Attractor. She's next to Estrella. The Johnny and Jonathan asteroid are sitting here next to Vesta. It's crazy. I don't know what that's all going to mean. I can't begin to tell you. I guess I'll tell you after we go through this eclipse window if I'm affected in any way. I think most of it, what it's doing, is just it's going to waken up DNA. That's what I think is happening on a collective level. You know, this Lilith vortex represents to me the highest potentiality of the divine feminine. Another part to notate with this, going into this eclipse window, are the fates. And I talk about Atropos, who is the cutter of fate. Clotho is the beginning of fates. They're traveling together, and they're getting closer and closer as, let's see, on this particular moon, let's see, Atropos is still in Virgo. Clotho's in Virgo, or in Libra. Mars is entering it in. Mars is action. Mars crosses Clotho a week before we go into this eclipse window. So that's beginning energy. Clotho is beginning fate. Mars is taking that energy. Atropos, which is a cutter of energy, is going to be at the beginning of Libra. Libra is about balance. These fates are working with balance within the universe. Clotho is next to a quincunx to that full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. So beginning energy, but quincunxes are very difficult energies. It's also these, Clotho and Mars are together as it enters the Lilith vortex. So I think from a standpoint of action, individually and collectively, we're going to be taken into the core of who we are as divine feminine expression. Now, not far behind it, Atropos is coming up. So once we get past these eclipses, they're both fates are going to be diving into the Lilith vortex together. Atropos, which is the cutter of fate, is approaching Clotho. They end up crossing over each other after they come in contact with the sun and the new moon of October 21st. They cross over Venus. They cross over all these things. And I know this seems like a lot on astrology, and I'm sorry to do that to you, but the point is there's so much happening in the sky between now and the rest of this year. And there's fated events, a lot of fated events, especially in Scorpio, because the fates both reach Scorpio by, let's say, the end of October and November. So whatever is happening in these eclipses, you're going to have a lot of fated events. They're going into the oscillating vortex with Lilith. By the end of November, the fates will be approaching that full moon in Scorpio 22-degree point. Again, I said we're going to deal with this all year long. There's like a huge vortex of energy because Mercury is there retrograde, taking us back into all sorts of communications. It goes across Mars, it goes across the Sun, it goes across Venus before it goes direct. And when it goes direct, the day before, Atropos and Clotho come together, and Atropos passes Clotho. So Atropos is cutting a fate, going across Clotho, the beginning of fate. I don't know what that looks like, but it happens right there as Mercury goes direct. And the Narcissus Centaur is there on that full moon Scorpio. I've got to talk to a real astrologer to tell me what these mean. The point is, a lot of stuff is happening between now and the rest of the year. So how is it going to affect you in your own life and what you're doing, your own soul expression? Stay in your heart. Really allow for listening grace to come through. Let your soul be guided with spirit with Cosmos, so that whatever new beginnings are going to come forward for you are in your highest expression. Please, please, please stay as far away as you can from any trauma, drama, family stuff. I mean, it doesn't, and I also don't want to say necessarily stay away, because that ends up being a spiritual bypassing. You want to be in the world, but not of the world. And so as we attend everybody else that's falling apart and the traumas and dramas, and the skies are all going through this active transition. And again, I mean, I bring this up. I mean, I've mentioned this for months now. We are in an individual and collective bardo state. We're having to face the totality of who we are, and it's like meeting God without having to leave here in the physical and go do a soul recapitulation before going back to God. That's really what I think this is going to feel like. And we've never done this before in human form. And I can't begin to articulate any of that. All I know is my asteroids are sitting in the middle of all this, so I guess that's why I'm speaking to it. I have no idea what it's going to look like for me. I do think that the more conscious we are, the more we go in and work with Spirit to release all of the baggage, the stuff. And if y'all have been on this call, you've been doing this for quite a while with Judith, and then of course with me for the last, we're almost at a year and a half now, of this process of doing these telecalls. And so yeah, and all of this is happening around this new moon on November the 20th. Huge amounts of energy. And there's a lot of action there. The sun expression, Venus, what you love, what you don't love, all with that Narcissus energy. The oscillating Lilith, also the Fates are there meeting up. November is just jam-packed, and it's all in Scorpio. Well, it moves on into Sagittarius. But once it goes through the Scorpio stuff, which is all of the what's hidden, all those things, processes, it's all going to go forward when Mercury goes direct by the end of November. And then I think I mentioned this before, but all of the personal planets come together in convergence right on the galactic center. So we're going to get huge, huge downloads of cosmic awareness within the Lilith vortex. And I don't know of any other astrologer that's explained it this way, but I don't think anybody's really seen what I've seen as far as this chart that's been created. I can't wait to make this video. It's going to be good. So yeah, I know that's been a lot. I hope that doesn't leave you more confused, because I know I've gone lots of places. Again, every time I do these things, I never know where I'm going to go. Now, by the end of the year, another thing Spirit's pointing out here, Juno, the asteroid Juno, which is it's basically the asteroid of marriage, partnerships, all these things. It's going to be there with all the personal planets. So it's going to affect how we partner in our life, with who we partner. And Venus and Juno are sitting on top of each other in the galactic center on the 22nd of December at the end of this year with the Lilith vortex. I mean, everything's sitting there together. So all of those things are going to be creating the new beginnings as we go into the beginning of next year. And again, Saturn and Neptune, when they enter into Aries again, end of January for Neptune, and then Saturn in the middle of February. But that then leads into the eclipses for next spring. So that's really when we really ground the new beginnings, when they take form and when they take shape, and when we can really put structure, because Saturn will be done with the past in Pisces, and Neptune also will. So whatever comes up between, for the next 6 months, between this eclipse window and the next eclipse window, again, I'm not going to project a value onto it. It's going to be unique for everyone. So we'll just have to see what comes up with it. Anyway, so I hope that gives you a little bit of frame of reference for anything, and I hope you've been able to. If you haven't, I know I sent a lot of reading material this time. Everybody was writing about this moon and the upcoming eclipse stuff, and nobody's really written the eclipse stuff yet. So that'll come up within the next 2 weeks, and I'll try to get you all that stuff as soon as I can. But hopefully everyone has shared enough, with you that you can read some stuff and gain some wisdom and insight that helps you create whatever it is each one of you are creating. And it certainly has me, and it's a perfect time to, whatever it is you're working on, this is the moon to put it out. That's why I think I'm going to be doing this video, working on it in the next week or two, and releasing it. I don't know if I'm going to release it before the eclipse window or within the eclipse window. Eclipses can blow it up. It's kind of like cosmic miracle grow. So all I know is these are life-changing eclipses. Once I put this video out, my life will change. I do know that, because it's a lot of information. So, yeah. Okay. Well, then get to your happy point spot, and let's try to go into deep meditation work, and we're going to do some major healing and a lot of clearing. So get where you're going and get still. Okay, so just take some really deep breaths. Just breathe really deep. Inhale and exhale. And I may not talk a lot through this one. I may just go in and let Spirit just energetically go with us. I'll just do as I'm guided, but okay, here we go. So now that you're really deep into your multidimensional awareness and expression, remember back to when I mentioned earlier in the call, 0 degrees Virgo. What does it look like to go into pure, pristine, virginal awareness as human expression? Not having anything to do necessarily with sexual expression, but as human expression. 0 degrees at the very beginning of pure mastery. Releasing all the history, the stories, going into a complete reset. Feel into what that would be like. And for everything else that's not that, throw it on the cosmic fire and allow it to be completely and totally transmuted. Okay, everyone, I hope this leaves you cleared out and brings you back into pristine awareness and a perfect place to begin to contemplate your new beginnings and supports being able to be in a place of 0 point energy, so you're no longer carrying any of your past history or distorted realities forward with you in what you're creating. Try to be as clean and concise as you can with your thoughts and your words and your deeds and everything you want to create. Again, as usual, feel free to stay on the call longer if you're just in this space, even though I'm closing it down here for the recording and everything. But yes, so thank you all again for attending. Much love, eternal love, and infinite blessings to you.